to the garage. This is the first video in a series where we're going to be working on the Ducati 1198S. It needs some rear end maintenance. Walking over to the star of the show, just looking at it, you never know it needed anything on the rear end. But I have noticed the rear shock is starting to leak. I see oil on the shaft and it's not getting better with time, that's for sure. There's no good way to really get that shock out of there without removing the swing arm. You know what, if I'm gonna remove the swing arm, it just makes sense to lubricate all of the pivot points. But there's a secondary thing going on here with the bike. I wanted to lubricate the eccentric adjuster. So since this is a single-sided swing arm bike, you adjust chain slack by moving a barrel eccentric there that basically moves the axle forward and backward. Well, over time, the grease that barrel kind of slides on goes away or gets filled up with grit and sand, and it's just a periodic thing. You want to take that out and lubricate it. Now, usually you can do that without having to remove the swing arm, but I've already tried that, and unfortunately I can't get the axle out to actually remove that barrel. So that is kind of a side job that we'll be doing with the swing arm out of the bike. Hopefully I can stick that axle in a press and actually push it out. Now, to get started, we need to remove the fairings on the bike because I'm going to need to put jack stands underneath the pegs. Working on a bike, especially when you're removing large components such as the swing arm, there's not a good way to support it. You could get custom expensive stands such as an ABBA stand, or if you're fortunate to have a garage with exposed rafters, which I don't have, you could maybe hoist the bike up with ratchet straps attached to the ceiling, or various other means that mean investing in your infrastructure quite a bit. I didn't want to do that, so I'm going to just use jack stands to support the bike, and hopefully that will be good enough. This bike is going to be out of commission for probably 3 to 4 weeks as I send that shock off to get rebuilt, which will give me time to clean things up and generally give the bike a good look over in the time being. So let's get started. You can see that luckily it's not seized up, but they're known to collect a lot of sand and debris behind here because there's a void in the swing arm, and you want to get rid of that and lubricate it somewhat periodically. Now, in order to remove this hub for it to be lubricated, you have to remove the axle from it. However, mine is seized in place. And just to show, I can move the axle a little bit because I feel it hits a stop. And that's basically it getting stuck on one of the bearings, I think. And it just won't go any further. Again, I've tried hitting this with a hammer. It just doesn't budge for the amount of force I feel comfortable applying laterally in the precarious situation the bike is being hoisted in. It's good to see that the swing arm was not seized in any way, nor were any of the linkages. Everything feels pretty good. That's really nice. I think the only thing left to do is now remove the swing arm pivot bolt, and then we should be able to remove the whole assembly. Now I need to drive out the swing arm pivot bolt, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch extension with a 13mm 1/4 inch socket. It seems to be about the right diameter to push this out. Finally. All right, so that is the shock removed, swing arm removed, and now I can see everything is very dirty and needs a deep clean, but I'm gonna box this up and ship it out to Velocity Calibrations in St. Louis to get it rebuilt, cleaned up, refilled, and looking proper again. So yeah, getting that sent out ASAP. Then obviously next video we'll work on removing that axle from the rear hub, rebuilding that rear hub, look at the bearing condition and potentially replace those as well. And eventually just give this thing a proper clean before we put it all back together. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all again soon.